Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for day 2 of our senior project presentations. The presentation of senior projects is such a special moment in the year when we get to honor the work of our seniors as a community. We are so glad that our seniors had the opportunity to work through this challenging year and complete their projects. It really speaks to the educational goals of providing students with the opportunity to become self-reliant and open-minded individuals capable of meeting whatever challenges they face. Today, we will see 3 presentations which showcase the development of academic, artistic, and practical abilities of our students. Our first presenter is Nao Sakai, who is presenting all the way from Japan at a very late hour, so we are very grateful for her to have the opportunity to be here. She will be presenting Making Formal Garments. Next, we have Kaito Mekawa presenting Toge Pottery. And last, we have Michael Mealy Herndon presenting Building a Multicopter. You can write your questions in the Q&A and I will read them to the students after their presentations. And without further ado, we can start with Nao.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nao. When I was thinking about a senior project and what I wanted to do, there were a couple of ideas. Watercolor painting, yoga, and prom dress making. Eventually, I landed on making prom dresses, and it was because I dreamed of wearing pretty dresses since when I was little, and I wanted to have one on my own. I decided to make a prom dress and some other style dresses, and I bought the fabric for the prom dress. When I look at it at home, and I realized that the fabric was too slippery and it moved a lot, and I realized that I didn't have the technical skills to handle the fabric. So I decided to put this project on hold. Then I found a kimono jacket that I could use to remake into a dress. The fabric was silk, but it was not too slinky, and I decided to reuse the kimono jacket into something I can wear. Before I made the dress out of kimono jacket, I wanted to practice first on another fabric so that I can make as many mistakes that I can, and I didn't want to ruin the fabric on a first try, making mistakes. So I got this fabric for practice. It was silk, and then I moved on to my actual dress, which was out of kimono jackets that I reused. The reason, after all, I chose to reuse the fabric and make a garment was because the jacket was not in use, and I didn't want to make any clothing. I didn't want to make any waste. And many kimonos are not in use and wasted just like other clothing that we normally wear. I wanted to be environmentally friendly, and I wanted to avoid creating extra waste. Also, the kimono jacket that I reused was my mom's, and she wanted to be used rather than not thrown away. I am really glad that I decided to make dresses for my senior project because I was able to learn many sewing and dressmaking techniques. Sewing and the ability to make something wearable is very vital tools in a time of scarcity, especially at this time of COVID-19. The project further inspired me to make my own clothing in the future. This is what I really wanted to recreate at the beginning of this process, but I gave up because my sewing skill for these type of fabric wasn't enough. My skill wasn't enough for it. And some of you may know which dress this is from. I was inspired by the film called Harry Potter. Before using the kimono jacket, as I said, I practiced on a silk fabric, and I just wanted to put it there. These are the tools that you need to have when you're making clothing. For example, serger is really useful when you have raw edges and if you wanted to trim the edge. I have an example, but probably you can't see with this setting, so feel free to ask me in the Q&A section to show you at the end. Also, seam ripper is really useful when you accidentally sew some parts that you didn't want to, and it will help to take out the seams. Here are the examples of kimonos. On the left, it is the picture of the top layer of the kimono or outer layer of the kimono. And there are more segments and layers than expected when you want to wear kimono and free sode. The difference between kimono and free sode is just the length of the sleeves. And in my project, I'm using the jacket that you will put on after you're wearing this, outfits that are shown in the picture. This is the diagram of the top layer of kimono, and the segments that are written in English is just the basic parts, and there are more parts to the kimonos, and also the layers that you will need to wear when you're wearing the kimono. This is the original shape of the jacket before I take the parts apart. So if you want to reuse kimono or kimono jacket, you have to take the parts apart in order to use, and you have an order to follow. So first thing you do is to take collars apart, and then you will take apart sleeves, and you will finally able to take apart the bodice. After you took apart all the parts, you need to separate the parts, and you will remove the threads. Then you should definitely check the fabric to see if there are any parts that are weak. You don't want to have some parts that are thin or really weak when you are done with making clothing and you can wear it. So definitely checking the fabric is important, and then you will wash the fabric. Many kimonos are stored with insect repellent, and the insect repellent is it has really strong smell, and it's not healthy to breathe in. So you should definitely wash it. And when you are drying the fabric, it is important to dry in the shade. Since the fabric kimonos are made out of silk, and the silk is very delicate, So if you dry it in under the sun, it'll ruin the fabric, and you don't want to have that. So definitely drying the fabric in the shade is, you need to follow that. And then when the fabric is half dried, you iron the fabric and the fabric will be ready to be used. After the so when the fabric is ready to use, I started to think about the design of the dress and started making the patterns and also the interfacing. I decided to choose fit and flare. I decided to use the fit and flare design, and I started to make the patterns and also interfacing. And when I made a pattern, I took a pattern from a book, and I got help from my mentor Miho to customize the size to fit my body and have more flares. After I cut the thin white material off the interfacing, I ironed it onto the fabric that I'm using, which is silk. And facing is to strengthen the neck holes and armholes, but also to stabilize the shape of the garment in these areas. And the facing consists of three layers, 2 layers of silk or any fabric that you're using, and 1 layer of interfacing. So this is the pictures of first fitting. I put together the segments that I got from the pattern, and I pinned it all together so I can wear and to check the measurements, and if there are any parts that are too big or anything that you have to do when you're fitting for first time. And then I put together first front and bodice and the front panels together. Bodice it'll come center and the panels will be the side. And I put together back bodice and back panels together. The first thing after the fitting was to attach facing. Normally you will insert the zipper first, but in my case, my facing had an unusual shape, so I had to attach the facing onto the bodice, and then I attached the zipper. The zipper that I used was called invisible zipper, and the reason why it is called invisible zipper is when the invisible zipper is attached onto the fabric, it'll be covered by the fabric in the end. And I have a picture or outfit that has invisible zipper, and I will show you at the end if you would like to see. And here's the completed dress. On the left side is the red dress that I made out of the kimono jacket, and on the right side is a dress that I made from the practice fabric. And the picture here, the name, this is actually a name. It's my mom's name, and she wanted me to use it for some part, so I decided to incorporate that into my facing. So it'll be somewhere here inside of my dress. the third dress is from the fabric that I got for the prom dress. I knew my skill wasn't enough for this project, but I wanted to challenge myself. And also I thought it would be wasteful to not use the fabric. So I made a prom dress. I wanted to have a Greek goddess tone vibe, but it might turn out too Greek, and I don't know I would like it, but anyway, I will move on. When I got the fabric for the prom dress, it was rolled onto a long paper made tube, and then I cut it into 6 pieces of 43 inches by 63 inches. And I put, for the first front of the dress, I put together 3 pieces, and I did the same thing for the back of my dress. So now we have 2 pieces that are really huge, and I made a mark on dress like this. Like this to make pleats, and the pleats will look like this. These making pleats are done by hand. I was going to use sewing machine, but the sewing machine that I had couldn't handle the thickness of the fabric, so I had to hand sew. So after 2 pieces of fabric is pleated, now I need to have shoulders. On the left side, I sewed the shoulder seams by joining the front and the back by hand. And for the right side, I finished the raw edges by attaching pocket-like strips with hooks and loops. Also, these are done by hand. After the shoulders are done, I sewed together the sides to make it into dress, and also I added beading onto the pleating seam because it's nice to hide the seam, not show these raw seam on the front of your dress. The dress itself is done. However, I wanted to have a belt on my dress, so I decided to get 3 different colors of rose gold, and I think the number of beads that I used was about 1,400. Some of you might ask me how many beads I used, so here's the number. And I used peyote stitch to make the belt, and later I attached ribbons on each end of the belt that I showed here and here, and so I can put it on my waist. And here's the final form of the dress that I created. What was difficult and what I learned from this project was technically that inserting zipper was the hardest, but also I struggled to be precise with the measurements. I found myself wanting to make more things to wear, and making mistakes reminded me not to make same mistakes over and over. This whole experience was hard, and you never knew what would happen, even though you plan it really thoroughly. But it was thrilling to sew these dresses and what I had to do to solve the problem. I am really grateful for gaining sewing skills that'll enable me to make my own clothing in the future. And then I'm also grateful for gaining insights into designing and fitting a garment. I have a project in my mind that I want to do soon is to make my own pants soon. Lastly, I want to say thank you to Miho, who guided me through this project. I could have not done it without you. Your support was really helpful, and I really appreciate what you've done to me. And also, I would like to say thank you to Miss Blaise Winston. She was my in-school mentor, and you helped me with my speech. You inspired me a lot, and it was very helpful what you've done. And also I would like to say thank you to Fiber Chris Studio and Chris, for letting me use the space. It was really nice, and I needed the space to create my dress. Also, I would like to say thank you to Lazuli. She is one of my classmates. I would not be able to make these dresses if I didn't have your sewing machine. So huge thank you to you. And also I would like to say thank you to anybody who was involved in this project. It was really helpful, and I really appreciate your support and inspiration that you gave it to me. So thank you. And then I will take the questions.
Thank you so much. Now that was incredible. Your creations are so beautiful. Okay, so one question is, the dress is beautiful. Can you describe what a peyote stitch is? That you used
peyote stitch is, it's hard to describe. So you put, I think it was even number of beads onto the threads, and then you will if this is like really shortcutted explanation, you skip one, and it doesn't have straight division. Okay, I have to draw a diagram if they're seeing this. It'll look like something like this if you're watching. So the beads aren't going like this, not like this one. Yeah.
Thank you. What was your favorite dress is another question.
I think what I would wear the most is the red one. I think that the red one is the most practical. It's red, so the color is really popping, but I think the last dress that I made I can't really wear them and go outside, so I think the red one is my favorite.
Ms. Stern says, what beautiful dresses. How long did it take?
Thank you.
Dress?
So obviously I didn't make it like in 2 days or 3 days. I took a long time to make it. I don't know, if I concentrated on it, probably able to make it like 3 weeks to 4 weeks. But I'm not a professional, and I need help. So I would say, yeah, I think about that length, a little bit longer.
Mr. Gilbert says, can you describe how it feels to wear a dress you made yourself?
It's really satisfying. I think it's a huge accomplishment that one of accomplishments that you make in your life. So I felt really good when I put it on. Yeah.
Someone is asking, Ms. Stern is asking how the serger works.
Okay, so serger, if you remember the picture, it uses 4 threads intertwined, and if you like flip your t-shirt, and then maybe you might see the what serger does, but basically it'll look like this, like this, and then so here's the raw edge, and then the serger sewed like this much here, and then no extra I don't know, threads from the fabric is shown here. Yeah, I don't know that explained.
Liz Dooley said, now I am speechless. Such beautiful and impressive.
Oh, thanks.
What was something you learned about yourself during this project?
You know, I think I had to be more patient. Like, I wanted to move on to next stage always. There were some boring parts that I didn't like. I didn't like patterning. I really liked using sewing machine. So, and then if you rush, I will make mistakes. So I had to be patient and, you know, like no rush and just do what I need to do at that moment. So I think I was less impatient than I thought.
A few people are asking if you're planning on making more dresses or going into professional clothing.
I'm not studying fashion design or anything in college, but I heard some people going in the fashion industry without fashion degrees from college. So I would definitely, well, I'm not sure that I would go to that direction, but I would be definitely making, not maybe dress, like a prom dress, but like daily wearing dresses or pants or t-shirts. Yeah, I would definitely make some.
Who or what gave you the idea of making dresses and when?
I think, well, I did. I think I came up with by myself. I don't know what I wanted to do in the beginning, but some people told me that making dresses are too hard. So, well, one of the people was my mom, and but I came up with the idea, and I wanted to make dresses, and because one reason was I really liked dresses since when I was little. And then some people stopped me, oh, you shouldn't do that because it's too hard. But then if I have a mentor, maybe that's possible. And yeah, then that turned out to be my senior project.
Okay, the last questions are, have you been able to wear the dress out? A few people are asking since you didn't have prom, and will you go?
I was going to wear in the graduation, but I'm not attending. So I don't know, maybe college graduation or maybe near future, I hope.
Great, thank you so much. Now,
thank you.
Thank you so much for staying up late. Now might have to depart us now, so we're all just so appreciative of you making this presentation and sharing your beautiful work with us. And we do hope to see you wearing that dress somewhere nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. Now we're going to have Kaito present. So, okay, hi Kaito.
Hi. Hello, my name is Kaito Maekawa. And for my project time, I've learned about toge pottery. For the start, I created a short video as a part of my presentation, which I will show you now. When I do pottery, I feel calm and focused. Back in the summer of 2019, after my junior year, I started to learn about pottery. It all started when my father insisted I learn about pottery, since my uncle was a professional craftsman. Around that time, I had no plans for the future. The only thing I knew about myself is that I prefer to create things with my hands. Therefore, when my dad asked me to learn about pottery, I was thinking this could be a possibility for my future. I went to a pottery class in Manhattan, New York, for a trial class with the help of my father, and became interested. As I began to learn about pottery, I started to have fun with learning the skills needed for creating a piece. A feeling of tranquility comes to me as I feel the clay, as well as the feeling of finishing the artwork by clearing the steps one by one. I feel the clay mold and shape into a bowl, plates, and many things in my hand. The more you learn, the more ceramic becomes fine and detailed. Now, I will explain the progress of how to make a ceramics. When I began creating a piece of art, I started with kneading the big clump of clay. Kneading is a mixing of clay with your hands in order to get rid of the air inside the clay and to distribute the moisture. After you kneaded the clay, I placed the clay on the center of the lathe and lock it in place. Placing the clay in the center is the most important part, because if it's not in the middle, it is impossible to shape the clay. After placing the clay on the center of the lathe and pinning it in place, I mold the clay using my skills and form it into the piece I want to create. Next, I cut the created piece off the base of the clay, and after waiting for several days for the ceramic to dry off most of the moisture, I create the base of the clay by using the scraper to scrape off the parts that I don't need. After that, I place the piece into the kiln, which is like a furnace. I fire it to harden the ceramics so I can withstand mechanical strength and water. Then I coat the ceramic with the glaze which give it a shine and makes it more decorative. There are several ways to glaze the ceramics, like dipping the glaze diagonally or pouring the glaze on the ceramics. Finally, after the glaze dries, I fire the ceramic once again to secure the glaze, and then my piece is complete. When I arrived at my first pottery class, I saw many ceramics, either complete or incomplete. Mechanical lathes, tools for scraping, and books about ceramics. In class, I learned about coil making. Coiling is a style of creating pottery that started in Africa and Greece and spread to China and New Mexico. If I could describe coiling, I will say it's like stacking many string-shaped clay pieces to a flat base of clay, and then you smooth it out. How you stack is what creates the shape of the ceramics. It was a 1-hour lesson, but it was enough to get me fascinated about pottery. I decided to go to another class to learn deeper about pottery. This wasn't something I would normally do, but I wanted to commit to trying something different. So during the end of the summer, I went to the pottery school to learn more about hand molding. I participated in a 4-week class of learning, and during that time, I became fascinated with glazing the ceramics, but I wanted more of a challenge in pottery. Therefore, I decided to participate in a wheel throwing class in October. Wheel throwing is another style of molding ceramics. It uses the centrifugal force of the lathe to form a complete circle. Since it makes a complete circle form, it is best suited for making pottery that is equally shaped on all sides, such as plates, bowls, and vases. This style requires contrast with a firm and precise grip for you to shape it and make a perfect ceramic. Wheel throwing was harder than hand molding because one wrong move or step can ruin the shape of the ceramics with wheel throwing. Although my skills were still immature, it was very satisfying when I mastered the techniques. As time went on, I mastered the technique and I was able to be confident. I liked wheel throwing. I loved the feeling in my hand as the clay changes its shape to my own image. The sense of accomplishment when I was finished was rewarding. This was when I became really motivated about pottery. For my senior project, I focused on toge pottery. Toge is a Japanese word for pottery or ceramics. Potteries around this time were the Jomon earthenware, which were very bold design and is the oldest earthenware in the world. When the era changed to the Yayoi period, which is 300 BCE to 250 AD, the earthenware became more well advanced and a simple practical product. In the Asuka period, which is 538 AD to 710 AD, a new pottery technology was introduced to Japan by the Korean Peninsula. With this, they started to use the lathe and they were able to fire the ceramic at a much higher temperature. These were called sueki or sueware because they were burned with the reducing flame. The foundations are gray-black colored and harder than the previous earthenware. Also, some pottery got ash during the firing, melting the ash and making a natural glaze. Around the Nara period, which is 710 AD to 784 AD, people started to use glaze, making the first glazed pottery. During the Meiji period, which is 1868 to 1912, a German chemist, Gottfried Wagner, came to Japan and spread a new type of pottery. He used underglazed enamells on dishes, tiles, and vases. He also introduced the Western style coil kiln firing. As many things around the world had evolved over time, Japanese history has also evolved over time. These days, pottery technology has gone around the world, such as the plaster mold, mechanical lathe and its molding technique, and the tunnel kiln. It might not be so imaginable, but pottery has been with people for a long time, including Japan. Togi pottery has several types of creating artwork. The most popular styles are hand building, wheel throwing, and slip casting. Hand building is the oldest forming method. It takes more time than the wheel throwing, but it's able to mold any shape than the wheel throwing. Wheel throwing is a method that you shape the clay using a spinning wheel tool called the lathe. It needs a high technique and training, but is able to make a complete circular earthenware. The other way to mold is slip casting, which is to pour a dissolved clay called slip into a plaster mold. Slip casting is a method that is suited for mass production. The thing I loved about the senior projects is that it connects two very important components of my life. My love of working with my hands and my love of Japanese culture. It started very long ago when me and my dad made a plastic model. It was pretty fun. It was very satisfying when I finished it. My dad suggested me, as I mentioned earlier, that I should attend pottery class, or at least learn about pottery. That might be a goal. That's what he said. And I assisted it. And I guess I was glad to learn about it. It's not really actually gonna be my actual goal, but at least this was one doorway to it. There might be other doorways to my future, like my dad, who actually started as a painter, not a stone sculpture. But this pottery, I guess it will be my door. It will be my first step to my future. Thank you. Of course. And now I'm going to show you several ceramics that were also came up in the video. This was my first one. I never really thought of the usage, but it likely is a teacup. This is for the small plates. This is that what I will call a donburi bowl, used for specific one. Has a crack since of an accident. I would have liked only this one, but unluckily there was this. Now these were made by another method called slab making. You cut out a piece and you shape it into the shape you want. This is for another small plates, and this is a chopstick holder. I haven't really thought deeply about the shape, so it's pretty much flat. Now this is a rice bowl. In my house, it's the smallest. Another teacup, Japanese teacup, by the way, has a golden glitter very beautiful. Sauce holder. My dad loves this since this red part was made not naturally. This is the tokuri. It's for like hot alcohol, or we call it atsukan. I tried to make it, but it's kind of unbalanced from the real ones. And last, this is my favorite, another Japanese teacup. I love it because of the perfect shape, the perfect circle. It's the best that I made. And that's everything that I got. There were unfinished ones still left in the workshop, but since of the coronavirus, I was unable to make it. My pottery teacher was Miss Nojiri, and I'm just gonna call Miss Risa. I don't know if it's her last name or not. And my in-school mentors were Miss Crane, Miss Simmons, and Miss Galilee. Well, then, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Kaito. That was really amazing. For people who weren't able to see the video, there will be a link, and we'll be sharing that hopefully towards the end of the week. Rasuli said, amazing craftsmanship, Kaito. Your work is amazing. Are you going to sell any of your pottery?
Have no sell. Not now, I guess. I mean, I don't know if I don't have any confidence that it's not able to be sold.
Okay. Will you work at the fellowship making pottery there?
I'm not really sure if I'm actually gonna continue doing pottery. I wasn't actually sure of what to do after. Definitely, I was thinking of going to college, but not any other else. Maybe just stay in Japan and get a mentor. And if after that, I actually don't know. Maybe I guess that's an opportunity.
Absolutely. Ian asked, do you plan on exploring other methods of pottery?
maybe, but I like this. I like the wheel throwing. It's very satisfying. That's what's more satisfying. I mean, I know I know a man who does pottery, and he only does the hand molding. So maybe I have other options, but
Someone asked, what is your favorite bowl or mug?
has everybody seen it? Like, I don't know, but this one isn't it ready? Isn't it beautiful? I mean, it's pretty. I don't know if beautiful or not. I feel the shape is pretty perfect from my point of view.
Someone asked, what is your favorite glazing method?
Glazing method. I think there's no such thing as a glazing method. It's just dipping in a certain in a certain way, like dipping it diagonally, or like pouring it in, or like I haven't mentioned in the video, but like combining two glaze in the middle.
Does anyone else in your family make pottery?
My uncle, my birth mother's uncle, he does. I think he does a company right now. And my again, my birth mother's grandpa, he was doing pottery.
How long does a piece usually take?
I usually I actually don't know if I don't know if it either takes two or 3 weeks with I don't know. I I actually never done the firing method, and it wasn't like I went to the class like 1 year or 1 week each, so I don't know how fast it is or how slow it is for a method to take for a piece to be finished. It might not. I don't think it's a 1 week thing, though.
Someone asked, do you actually use your pieces for eating and drinking tea? If so, how do you feel when you use your own work?
Yes, I have you. Mostly this, this and these for I guess the most for now. I haven't really seen my place on the table very much, other than the ones that I just shown. But yes, although this one was more for like a vase. It was more used as a vase.
Which was the most challenging piece to make?
Challenging. I think it was maybe the so-called vase one. Maybe this was my first. I mean, there was this, but this was the one I did to like my own self. I did have some help when I was making pottery with help of the faculties over there, and the vase was the first ceramic that I did by myself. Thank you for the cat.
And where do you make your pottery?
Two places in the New York City, so-called Toge Pottery. Not Toge Pottery, Toge Kyoshitsu. And the Fellowship. Does anyone know about the pottery room? I say room, but it's pretty much outside, like a small house.
Great. Last question, do you ever paint your pottery?
Paint. I think there was what? There was a myth. Paint. I haven't really thought of it. I guess that's another way to another way for pottery, but I guess it's not still in the chart right now.
Yes, and there were just many compliments and Ruben saying how beautiful your pieces are. So we're so grateful that you were able to share them with us and your story and how it really connects with your culture. It sounds like it was an amazing experience. And thank you for sharing, Kaito.
Thank you.
So now we will move on to Brandon. Okay, Michael, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Michael, and for my senior project, I made a multicopter. Can you see this? So for those of you who don't know what a multicopter is, they're more commonly referred to as drones. So here is a picture of a drone. This one is obviously not mine. This one is pre-made, very seamless design. Mine has a more homemade feel to it. Here's my finished project. And to get into a little bit of what a drone actually is, it's basically just a computer that's controlling 4 propellers on motors. And this computer has a gyroscope inside of it, which can determine the tilt of it itself. And with all this information, it sends directions to the motors on how to stabilize itself in midair. Now, in my case, I also have a receiver on the drone, which is connected to my transmitter. And with all of this information, the computer can, the result is a flying drone that you can control with the transmitter, which is pretty cool. Now, the inspiration for my senior project initially came from 11th grade. In our electricity and magnetism block with Mr. Rowe, we were given the assignment of creating something with a small computer called an Arduino. Now, in my case, there was an unfinished Arduino car that my dad had forgotten about, which I used for my project. But instead of just leaving it as it was, I decided to add something to it, RC functionality. I got an RC receiver and connected it to the Arduino. And with that, I had the Arduino reading from the receiver and telling the motors what to do based on what the receiver was saying. And it kind of worked as an RC car. So this project really made me think about what to do for my senior project, because I always knew that I wanted to do something technical like this, but this project really broadened my sights. And I thought, what if I could use the same sort of setup with an Arduino and a receiver to make a drone? So instead of using wheels on the motors, I could put propellers there. And some extra steps, I could have a drone. So that's what I tried to do on my first build. And as you can see here, there's 4 motors on the edges. And in the center, right now, there's a power distributor right there, which takes power from the battery that's connected right here. And on top of that, I was going to put the Arduino. But as you can see, here's another picture of the build. This is really messy, and that's a big problem. So I ended up abandoning this because the wires were all over the place. So if I'd ever gotten to put propellers on it and get them working, if it was flying and for some reason the wire got snagged on the propeller, well, it would break the drone and it would crash, and we don't want that. So I wanted to continue the project, but I had to rethink my direction of going about it. So that's where my senior mentor, Tim Lee, stepped in to help. After I showed him what I was working on, he said that all of it was excessively complicated, and I could just use pre-built computers that were made specifically for building drones. So here's a picture of pre-built drone parts. So on the top, you can see the flight controller or the computer. That, well, in my case, it would have been the Arduino, but this one's a lot smaller, so it's a lot better. And this bottom one is what you call an electronic speed controller. So in this picture, you can see these 4 blue things on the wings of the drone. They would have acted as a bridge between the computer and the motor, because you can't connect a motor directly to a computer. You have to have one of these electronic speed controllers in between. Now, with these pre-built parts, this here is 4 of those blue things in one piece, and it's a lot smaller than 4 of them together. So all of this was really helpful. And with these parts, I managed to make my first drone. So you can't see them right here, but in the center are the 2 modules I just showed you, which control the drone and have all the software on it. You can plug in a computer directly to the top part to access all the configuration and everything. And then right here is the receiver. And this yellow thing is the battery that powers everything. So after I had my first drone, this is my first try at flying it. As you can see, I'm not the best at flying it right now. Takes a little bit of getting used to. Yeah, I just flipped it over accidentally. So understanding how exactly a drone flies was the next step of my senior project. Here's a diagram of the basic setup of motors on a drone. So as you can see, they're labeled 1 to 4, and every other motor is paired with each other, as in going the same direction. Each motor independently goes whatever speed the computer tells it to, but every other motor is going the same direction. So the green ones, 1 and 3, are going clockwise, and 2 and 4 are going counterclockwise. When I first, well, this is how the program that's on the pre-built flight controller tells you to set up your motors. And I was kind of confused at first. Why would they do this? Why don't they just make all of the motors go clockwise or something? But there's actually a reason. So when a motor starts spinning, it will start tilting as well. And motors spinning in the same direction tilt in the same direction. So if all of the motors were going clockwise, the drone would start tilting in whatever direction motors tilt when they rotate clockwise. And that would make the drone really unsteady in the air and flip over all the time. And you don't want that. So the way that corrects for this is alternatingly having different directions on the motors. So the tilts cancel each other out and you have a stable drone in the air. Now, the other thing that was kind of weird for me when first flying the drone was the mechanics behind how it flew. So since the motors can only spin in one direction, you can only ever get thrust in one direction, which is towards the drone's upward position. And well, before I finished the drone and I saw people flying them in videos or something, I always assumed that they were telling the drone to go up, and they could also tell the drone to go down. But that's actually not how it works. You can only ever tell the drone to go up. You can throttle up, and that makes the drone fly up. And if you want to make it come down, you have to just throttle down, and then the drone's weight will do the work for you. Now, this was pretty weird for me at first, because flying a drone really is finding the balance between too much throttle and too little throttle. For example, if you're trying to get under an overhang or something, and you're coming from above, you have to throttle down just enough that you don't hit the top of the overhang, but also not throttle too far down that you hit the ground and crash. So the second part of my senior project was really getting used to the controls. Now here's a video of the first drone flying. And how it works is there's a camera on the drone with a video transmitter connected to it. And I see this feed when I'm flying it. And that's how I control it. But as you can see, this one has a pretty bad video transmitter. So at one point, actually, it cut out completely while I was over the woods, and it fell, and I've yet to find it. But I built a new drone, and that one has a better video transmitter, so hopefully I don't lose this one. But as you can see, it's still pretty cool. Yeah. So here's the video, a video of my newest drone flying. This one has two cameras actually. One of them is the first person view. And this one that I'm showing is an HD camera, but for some reason Google didn't want to upload it in HD, so this is what you're seeing. It adds some extra weight to the drone, but I think it's worth it. Now here you'll see that I end up crashing, and that's because the first person view camera is worse quality than the HD camera. So this net I can't actually see, and that happened, so yep. Ultimately, this project helped me enter into the world of electronics in a different way than I'd done before. Usually, if I was gonna work on electronics in the past, it would have been in like a class or something. So I would have been learning what I was gonna do before actually building anything. In this case, I really didn't have much of an idea what I was doing at first. So I ended up breaking a lot of stuff, and I had to learn as I went. But I think actually that the approach of learning as I go was really helpful because it taught me better. For example, when I built the second drone, it took a lot quicker because I knew from breaking everything on the first drone while building it what to do better. So I have a few thank yous. Firstly, to Tim Lee, my out-of-school mentor, for always being there whenever I need help and teaching me how to do things. My in-school mentors, Mr. Gilbert, for meeting with me and making sure I was always on track. Mr. Rowe, for being my first in-school mentor. And Miss Volpe, Miss Cologne for always making sure I had everything together, and also to my parents for being supportive and giving me access to their Amazon. That was helpful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was really incredible to see all of the work you did on this project. A lot of people are saying how cool it is. How long did it take for you to make the multicopter?
Well, the first one took a few months because I was, well, you saw the first stage where I had everything I was trying to connect it to the Arduino. And then I had to figure out how everything worked together once I got the pre-built parts. But then the second one took maybe a few weeks.
How far can it fly?
I haven't really tested out the latest one, but I think somewhere between half a football field and 2 football fields. Like, it depends. I don't know.
Can you do any tricks with your drone?
I don't really want to do that yet. There's a way to practice in a simulator, and before doing that in real life, I'll have to like get better. I don't know.
For how long can it fly, Luke asked?
Oh, well, I don't know. I think like 5 minutes, but you can replace the battery. If like I have 2 batteries I could use.
Ian asks about drone racing.
Yeah, that's something that I can only do if I practice like a year or something. I mean, like a year nonstop. Like, all the people in drone racing are insane. I don't know how to do that.
What's the highest point you've seen?
Like the highest that I flew.
I suppose.
Well, the only time I flew really high was when I lost the first drone because the wind blew it away. But yeah, I don't really want to try that until I get better.
How much did it cost for you to make it?
Okay, so usually a drone costs, like a low budget one. If you're thinking about building one, I'd recommend just buying one for like $300, because if you're building one, it will cost more than that because you break things.
Someone asked if you've used the drone to spy on people.
I'll look into it.
Grace asks, when you fly the drone, do you look through the drone camera or look at it from the ground to control the direction?
Yeah, I can look at it through the drone's camera.
Mr. Rose said, great work. Are you going to continue building and improving multicopters? How do you want to improve them and how will you use them?
I think I'll definitely continue with this, yes. On how will I use them? I guess just as a hobby right now. I don't know.
Someone asked, how did you get all the parts and did you have instructions to put it together?
So where I got them from, you can buy most of these parts online, or all of these parts online, like from Amazon, or there's sites that are specialized for this. And then, did I have instructions? There's a lot of YouTube videos and like manuals and stuff. And also my mentor, Tim Lee, told me how to do things a lot.
Sir Bob asked, do you now fly in stabilization mode or angel mode?
You can do stabilization or just without any stabilization at all.
Lazuli said, so awesome, Michael. What is something you learned about yourself during the project?
I learned that I'm a person who tends to want to always get to the end of something. And after I finished the first drone, I was like so happy that I was done with my senior project, but actually I wasn't. So I have to be more patient, I think.
Someone asks, what is the battery voltage you're using now?
So the batteries are rated through their milliamp hours, I think, and also how much they discharge, their discharge rate. So you have to do some math to figure out the voltage. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. Alex asked, how fast can it fly?
I think mine can fly like 80 kilometers an hour. I don't know, miles an hour for that.
And does it need to be charged?
The batteries are need to be charged, but you can like take off the battery. It's just another part that I had to buy, the battery. So there's a battery charger that I had to buy for that. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we're all really impressed with your ability to work through the challenges and actually make 2 multicopters in this process. So thank you so much for sharing your wonderful work, Michael. And thank you to all of the attendees today for coming. We, again, had 150 people at one point watching, which is really amazing. We're so glad that we're able to bring our community together in this way. So thank you, Kaito, Michael, and I hope everyone can join us again tomorrow for the last day of presentations at 11 a.m. So thank you. Bye, everyone.